I love Disney, not just because they've bought everything so it's impossible to hate everything attached to them, but because their movies are genuine classics. Sure, there's the bad stuff, but even in their worst material like Pocahontas, Oliver and Company, Chicken Little, whatever, you can always find one thing great about it. Okay, maybe not Chicken Little. I just have one request. Can someone please tell Disney to stop reliving through their classic work? Before anyone goes off to remind me that a majority of the Disney features being remade are themselves adaptations of stories, let me remind you that the remakes are largely following the Disney take rather than just adapting the source material. For the most part, I have no issues with adapting from the same source, or remakes for that matter. But when all you're doing is recreating the movie that was made, one has to ask, what's even the point? Now, to be fair, some of these movies are very different from their predecessors. While even the closest to the earlier takes, they'll try to offer some reason for their existence. But trying to make the evil villagers in Beauty and the Beast more sympathetic is just not enough when you still provide the iconic moments that clash with the new take. That is, at the root of it, the problem. Recreations of the iconic with little substance thrown in that rarely fits with the iconic. Gaston can act more innocently towards Belle, then receive the same outburst from Belle without making Belle seem slightly crueler. It just doesn't work that way. Now, it's not about doing the same thing. I applaud the attempts to be different, but you can't just be different then get the same results. Are there Disney remakes that work? Sure. The Jungle Book and, that's about it. Okay, there are some that I'm at least a little softer towards now, all things considered. But for sure, the Jungle Book is the only one that I'd say actually fully works. It's similar to the original, sure, but unlike the other ones, it feels like the right amount of familiar. The iconic moments are there, but changed in ways that are appropriate to the version being told. The story is also a little more cohesive compared to the original, making it feel less episodic, and it even alters the ending, making it something that's more fitting to the story being told. It's exactly what a remake should be. It's just a shame that we can't get more of those.
But I'm helping Baloo get ready for hibernation.
Bears don't hibernate in a jungle.
Not full hibernation, but I nap a lot.
To understand why we're here now, let's go back to where this all began. Alice in Wonderland. Sure, we had live action remakes prior to this with the 90s Jungle Book that everyone forgets about, and 101 Dalmatians, which is worth a watch, especially because Glenn Close is great as Cruella de Vil, but the trend really started just this past decade. Now, I've grown slightly softer towards Alice in recent years. It's awful, don't get me wrong, it's still one of the worst, but at least it had its own vision. Again, not a good one, but there's a risk in doing your own thing that I prefer over the safe bet of doing the familiar. Following that, well, technically there was The Sorcerer's Apprentice, but I'm not counting that one, because outside of the name and a weak recreation of the short, it really has nothing to do with that. No, we move over to Maleficent, which did pretty well. Not as good as Alice did, but it did well. This is another one I don't consider to be good, but I respect Disney for trying to do I Spit on Your Grave but for kids. It would be the next film where the Disney remake would truly be defined. Cinderella. Personally, I'm okay with this one. Largely thanks to Cate Blanchett as the stepmother, but yeah. This is the one where we started seeing closer recreations of the Disney stories, as well as pointless info explaining the flaws of the original, like why Cinderella stays with the stepmother, why no one noticed Cinderella at the ball, all that stuff. The movie became a massive hit, some would credit it to the Frozen short attached, but it just doesn't matter. Disney got the message, remake your films as close as possible while adding new info to explain the old nitpicks. A formula that has quickly become tiresome. Now to be fair, the string of films haven't all been exactly like that since. Again, Jungle Book is in that same ballpark, but it at least is a good movie because it did a great balance of it. We had an Alice sequel after that, which wasn't good, but I feel a little sorry for it because it not being good is a result of having to follow the 2010 film. Beauty and the Beast was the perfection of the worst aspects of Cinderella. Dumbo tried being different, but was like Tim Burton's last attempt at one of these, not good. Though this time around he did try recreating some of the scenes from the original. Finally, we get to Aladdin, which, all honesty, I have not seen yet. It just looks like another Cinderella, which aspects are fine, but overall it's a mediocre recreation of a film we already loved. By the way, in case you're wondering, I didn't include Pete's Dragon or Christopher Robin here because while those are technically films created around this trend, one is a remake of a live action film while the other is an actual follow-up to the stories we know. They're both good if you're wondering, but again, I wouldn't really count them as the remakes, at least animated remakes. If I were to sum up my frustration, it comes down to this. We've had so many adaptations to these stories before, and for Disney to just do a recreation of one specific version with little to no substantial differences is just boring. It becomes predictable, which means even if they're average, there's no worthwhile surprises. I've grown more thankful for the ones that attempt to go in different directions because at least those are attempting to say more than just remember how much you love these, but there's just no risk, no soul, just a reminder that these movies are made for money, that they're being marketed marketed everywhere makes it harder to ignore. Much as I hated the Disney direct-to-video sequel trend, at least they sat on their own little corner, which made it easier to ignore. I just honestly don't know what else to say, other than, please Disney, stop remaking your animated features.